Hello, this is Dr. Betty Rubinowitz, NextGen Healthcare's Chief Medical Officer and Principal with NextGen Advisors. Welcome to our podcast series. Today, we're pleased to have a guest joining our podcast, James Vesper, Ph.D., MPH, who's an author of 6 books for the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry on best manufacturing practices, risk management, and quality systems. He works with the pharma and biotech industry globally. Jim is the Director of Learning Solutions for ValSource, former President of LearningPlus, and has been an advisor to the World Health Organization on the distribution of vaccines. What an incredible skill set for today's conversation. Welcome, Jim.
Good morning. Thank you.
Today, we're going to discuss some of the unique attributes regarding the vaccines being developed for the COVID-19, as well as the particular challenges that some of the vaccines will face as we go from kind of invention to production to distribution. Jim, perhaps you could begin by explaining the new messenger RNA technology being used in the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. And once you've explained that, how do they differ from vaccines of the past?
Sure. Both of the vaccines from Moderna and Pfizer work on using a messenger RNA. And that's really different from past technologies where you have used the virus, either an attenuated virus, a weakened virus, or you have used a killed virus. The other thing that's very different is that when you talk about MMR vaccine or you talk about seasonal flu vaccine, it's produced in eggs or egg embryos. What we're seeing now is the change with the mRNA and some of the newer other vaccines that are in the pipeline is that they're produced using biotechnology. One of the interesting things about the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines is that it involves a whole new platform. And what we mean by that is that it's a different way of producing, but it's also a different way of creating these vaccines. And you can almost think of it as like a Lego toy. And you have a set of Legos that are put together. And now as you are moving from, for example, Ebola to COVID, you're swapping out pieces of those Legos. Mm-hmm. So some of the underlying structure is still there. It is still being maintained, but you're able to switch in and switch out. And I think that was really the thing that got these two vaccines in particular as far as they have, as quickly as they have.
Mm-hmm. So theoretically, you have an interchangeable component on a platform or a base that is common to all vaccines, but you just switch out the specific viral component you're building the vaccine to.
Yeah, at least it's common to these types of vaccines. It will be really exciting to see what that might mean for other types of vaccines in the future.
Absolutely. So how is, there are all these companies racing to produce this vaccine, and as a result, we likely will have multiple vaccines available in the near future. What would some of the benefits of having multiple vaccines for COVID be?
Having multiple vaccines available might play out in some different ways. Maybe some of the clinical trials will show that certain vaccines work better for certain populations, maybe the elderly, people with particular underlying conditions. Also, what you will have is them being produced in different parts of the world. Mm-hmm. And some will then be available more quickly in certain markets, like the Indian market. Serum Institute of India is the largest producer of vaccines globally. They have a very large presence, a huge presence in India, in the town of Pune. But then, other regions will have these. So I think it works from two perspectives. Multiple patients that may need this of the population, but also being available more regionally to support those populations.
Has this been a competitive process between the companies, or have you seen unusual collaboration in this process? In
terms of collaboration, I think there has been a little bit of that. firms coming together several months ago, major firms like Pfizer and Merck, Moderna, others signing a statement saying we are going to let science drive this. We are trying to make this free of any type of political influence. We're going to listen to the data. We're going to listen to the experts in this. So I think there has been that level of cooperation. But you see then other firms, being very quiet, with the proprietary information of exactly what they're doing and some of the process, because that's really going to make this a sustainable effort. One of the things about biotech, particularly early biotech, is that there are a lot of surprises.
Yeah.
The bacteria, don't always behave exactly like you would think. It's not like a chemical process that you would use for small molecules like ibuprofen or atorvastatin or something like that. So I think companies, they are using that to their proprietary advantage. And, in some areas, there is some type of conversation about some of the quality systems, some of the concerns that are more global, if you will, about the production of that vaccine. So you see a little bit of a collaboration, but you also see, companies wanting to be a little bit quiet about what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's switch to talking a little bit about the distribution of vaccines. Let's first focus on what we know from the past. How is normal vaccine distribution managed, for example, for MMR or seasonal flu vaccines?
So, the distribution of vaccines is really governed by a set of regulations and guidelines known as good distribution practices. Most of the world, they're just called GDP, good distribution practice. But it really begins on the firm side of trying to understand what is the requirement that we have to have, and that is shown through stability testing to make sure that you maintain a level of efficacy of that product, and also you have no increase in impurities over time. So those stability studies really define what time and temperature requirements for distribution and storage need to be maintained. So once you understand that, you can then move into the design of the packaging. And what we're seeing with particularly the Pfizer vaccine is they're talking about a whole packaging component that allows the shipment at minus 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So once you understand the time requirements, the temperature requirements, the packaging requirements, then you can move into what we call validation of shipping lanes. Where is it going to be sent from? Is it going to be sent from a site in North Carolina, manufacturing site there, to California, to Europe? So you're then sending these, what we call shippers, with fake material, but something that's very similar. You're sending those around through those different shipping lanes, and you're monitoring the time, you're monitoring the temperature using data loggers. So that's usually how it's done for really all types of pharmaceutical products that have to be maintained at a specific time and temperature. So we're going to see that happening even more broadly for the COVID vaccines.
Do you see challenges that are insurmountable with the distribution of this in third world countries, where just they will not be able to maintain or sustain temperatures at that level over a period of time?
Yeah, I think that there definitely are challenges for parts of the world. Here in the U.S., in most of Europe, we can get through this in terms of ordering new freezers for distribution centers, or FedEx or UPS having some really extended, incredible capabilities for very low temperature storage. The work that I did with the World Health Organization was training a lot of people from public health agencies, regulatory agencies around the world on the handling of these vaccines and good distribution practices. And in doing that, meeting people from really all over the world, from the Philippines to Nigeria to Zimbabwe, Iran, Cuba, where they really have a lot more limitations in the resources and in the facilities that they use. So I think what we were talking about earlier about other products that may not need as tight of temperature controls, they may find a very big market in some of these areas where the ability to keep things at extremely low temperatures, the ability to do that is rather limited. Another piece of that has to do with the current capabilities. All of a sudden, a country like Turkey, for example, having to have another storage capacity for 100 million doses in a particular year. Again, through the work that I did with WHO and spending a lot of time in Turkey, they have really a really solid, really good distribution program for vaccines. But to say all of a sudden, now you have to have distribution capability, storage capability for all these new doses, that is going to present a challenge. When you get even farther into parts of Africa, parts of India, Indonesia, where you have what we call vaccinators that are going out literally in canoes and on motorbikes, taking their vaccine to very remote areas, that again is going to be providing more of a challenge. But I think using some of the models that are there, using some of the new vaccines, some of the temperature controlled equipment, cool chests that groups like the Gates Foundation have funded, I think that can be done.
Mm-hmm. I know that you had mentioned that GPS trackers would be used. Can you talk a little bit about how that technology is being utilized in the context of shipping and distribution?
Yeah, with the shipments of vaccines, Pfizer has been very public about a combination data logger and GPS system. So what that means is that they can go online and they can track every box, every container that they are using in shipping as to where it is and what is the temperature status there. So that technology has existed, but they're really being very vocal and talking about what they're doing. I think it's part to build confidence.
Yeah.
That, hey, this is going to be a high quality product. We understand what the risks are. And we're taking all sorts of control measures to reduce those risks.
Absolutely. There's been a lot spoken about a shortage of supplies like the vials, the glass vials, as well as the challenges of disposing of vast amounts of syringes, needles, the vials themselves. Can you say something about those challenges?
Yeah, so all of a sudden now we're sending millions and hundreds of millions of new doses throughout the world. So yeah, you will have a lot more waste of those types of container closure systems, the syringes, but also we're concerned about the shipping containers themselves. What's going to happen with those? In the past, the pharma industry hasn't really done a great job about recycling. Concerns about contamination have been part of that. So not only do you have to have a logistics loop to get product out to the people that need it, but now how are you bringing those containers back in a safe way to the manufacturers? It'll be really interesting to see what happens with that. Europeans are a little bit more aggressive about having some sort of a recycling program than we are in the States. But those things, they could cost a lot of money. There could be a potential shortage of those. So how they are handled will be of interest both to the industry and also to people concerned with the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not completely a fair question, but since you're an expert, if you were offered the vaccine tomorrow morning, would you take it? And let's say the Pfizer vaccine.
Yeah, I would have very little hesitancy in taking the vaccine. If you take a look at what is being done, what has been done, I really do have confidence in both the companies right now and also in the FDA that will be doing the licensing or the emergency approval of those products. I think from the company standpoint and having some sort of behind the stage looking at some of the work that's being done, companies don't want to mess this up. They know that their reputation is on the line. They know that there is a public health issue. And if they would stumble, if they would put out a product that would eventually have to be recalled, it wouldn't look good for them. It wouldn't look good for public health. So I think companies are being very, when they're thinking about the risk from a public health standpoint, from a quality standpoint, from an efficacy standpoint, they are having a very low risk tolerance, which means they don't want anything to go wrong. Where they are having a larger risk tolerance is the business risk. In producing these vaccines, having millions of doses ready to go, I know some organizations are saying if there is anything that doesn't meet specifications, anything that doesn't look right, we'll take the business risk, we'll throw the product away, even though it means millions and millions of dollars. But I think most of the industry that I've come in contact with is willing to balance those risks, minimal public health risks, but being accepting of, high business risks. So yes, I would take something.
That's really reassuring because I would follow right after you. So
we'll be 6 feet apart, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and wearing a mask, absolutely. It's I'm sure been a very exciting time in the pharmaceutical industry, and we are really so dependent as a society now on those efforts. So I'm really glad that you as an industry expert were able to participate with us today and give us some of your insights, and really want to thank Dr. James Vesper for sharing his knowledge and insights on this important topic. Thank you as well, of course, to our listeners for joining us. And you absolutely know where the subscribe button is. So if you've enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe for future ones. On behalf of the NextGen Advisors, this is Betty Rubinowitz. Have a great day.